Hello, everyone. Sherry back here on KC7 channel. And I have with me tonight, of course, Simeon and Greg that were joining us last week. And I am so excited. We have a very, very special guest with us tonight. And I'm going to turn it over to our special guest and let him introduce himself.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Tuan, or I go by Jibba online. You'll see me on the KC7 Cyber scoreboard, where I am no longer number one, but that's okay because there are other exciting things that have happened there. Yeah, so I have a background in watch and jewelry repair and found KC7 in March of last year, and it literally changed my life. Like, not being dramatic and not joking, but it kind of unlocked this like I guess desire in me to like investigate and find story and data that I never thought I would be interested in. Um, Honestly, like I've never played video games. I don't own a television, and I didn't even own a computer until like a few months before I found KC7. Like I'm a very non-technical, like I'm the last person you would think would ever want to be in cybersecurity if you would have met me a year ago. All my friends think that it's nuts that I'm doing this stuff now.
Wow. So how did this come to be? Here's a person who didn't even have a computer at one point. How were you introduced to cybersecurity?
So my best friend since growing up, he worked in security and he always thought that I'd be good at it. And for years he was like, you need to check this out. Like there is this big thing in cybersecurity where we need good people who know what they're doing to step in and do this. And I had no interest. I'm like, I don't even have a computer. Like, what am I gonna this makes no sense to me. Like I fix watches and I'm fairly happy doing that. And he just kept, drop every time I'd have dinner with him, he'd talk to me about like Diffie Hellman key exchanges. And I think personally, he just wanted somebody else to talk about security with. Because I think like once you get to know people in security, they're all really passionate and that's what they want to do in their free time is to talk about it. And he had nobody else to talk about it with. So I kind of felt like he was trying to get me into it so he would have somebody to talk to about. But anyways, he convinced me to buy a computer. So I walked into a Target and I bought a computer for $200 and signed up for a Try Hack Me account and
Wait,
started
you,
playing
you
it and
didn't have
thought,
a computer until you started exploring the cyber stuff?
no, no.
That's
I had no
insane.
computer. Like I said, like I I cook like like I used to sew stuff as a hobby. Like I'm very hands-on type of person. And so those are the things that I did. Like and yeah, I had no interest in any kind of a screen. I'm gonna have a like the same old like iPhone just because it's a necessity. But yeah, my wife has a computer for work, and I'd use that to like browse something if I needed to. But other than that, I just use my phone for everything. And so like it was like I remember it was like the end of October. He tells me, he convinces me to buy a computer. So I'm like, okay, fine. I'll, $200, walked into Target, bought a computer, came home with it, signed up for a Try Hack Me account, and started playing that. And it was pretty fun. It was interesting. Like the game is set up for you to succeed early on, and it was easy enough where it felt interesting enough for me to want to come back to it. But and then I got really good really fast at that, and that's when I was like, oh, maybe I could do this. And I started, and I think that was like in December. I started looking up like, oh, I go online and Reddit and all that kind of stuff. Okay, take this CompTIA A plus. Like, all right, I'm gonna do the CompTIA A plus, and so like 2 weeks later, I passed the first one. 2 weeks later, I passed the second one, and it was like $700 later, and I was like, wow, that was like the most boring test I'd ever taken in my life.
You paid to do it.
Yeah, and the thing that was weird to me was like the stuff that I was doing on the computer was so much fun, and the test was a complete opposite of it. And I think
Mhm.
it's because it was so expensive that there was this pressure to not fail as opposed to just go in there and play and have fun, right? And so that kind of like changed the way I thought about it. And it made me think that if this is what a career in cybersecurity is, then I don't want to do it because it wasn't fun. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't want to do boring stuff. Like I do boring stuff all day. What I do, at the watch shop, like I don't need to trade one boring for another boring.
And spend money doing it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
looking towards the other certifications, that's like another like I don't know. They're so I don't even know what they cost, but it was so expensive. And And I just thought, that's not for me. That's not
Mhm.
what I want to do. And my friend was always saying, "Oh, the certs don't matter. Like, don't care, don't worry about them." Like, but I'm like, but online they say I need to do these things, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, he's talking with as somebody who has like all this experience. He's worked at all these big companies. Like, it's easy for him to say that. Like, it's not going to be hard. But me, like as a watchmaker, who's going to pay attention to me if I don't have like the hardware to prove it? That's what I thought. And and then I saw Simeon on a stage talking about his game that he made, and I was like, well, that looks like a fun game. And it actually turned out to be like the most like fun game I've ever played in my entire life.
I love to hear that.
Wow. So just from watching him on stage, it really got you interested in learning more about, was it the game or cybersecurity that got you interested?
It was the game itself. I think the
Okay.
cybersecurity came after the game. Like, so I had already signed up for it was a Sans New to Cyber Summit, and it was in March of last year. And I'd already signed up for it. And by the time like that it came around, I had already checked out. I'm like, I'm not doing this. But it came up on my notifications. I thought, why not? I'll just check it out. I had it playing in the background, and I wasn't really paying attention to it. Like, honestly, like I hear people come up there and tell their stories, and I'm like, yeah, that's not me. Like, that's not going to be me. But Simeon brought up the game, and I was like, oh well, I that sounds like fun. I'm gonna just play it. And it was like my first ever CTF, and I think doing something in real time added to the fun of it, because like on Try Hack Me, it's like at night, everybody's asleep, and I'm just sitting here on my computer and clicking away. There's no pressure to it, and there's no like leaderboard or people that you're chasing. And I think that the real time aspect of it kind of was another thing that made it interesting.
Yeah.
And like I remember Haxolotl was winning everything, and I was like, my goal was just to catch Haxolotl. That was like, and that is what kind of made me want to learn all the other things. It's like I just gotta get better than that person.
Yeah. So
Wow.
some background on, we went to New to Cyber actually because we were
Right.
at Sans CTI Summit, and we have some pretty cool supporters in the community. So Katie Nichols and Lillian Tang were there, and they're like huge DI advocates. Um, and they said, you have a game that's trying to get free access to cybersecurity people. You need to be at this other event. And they put us in touch with all the right people. And Jen Santiago over at Sans, who running that amazing conference, said, hey, like go on stage, talk about KC7. What you didn't see in the background was that we're at a very early stage in KC7. So the leaderboard that we're running was like very patchy code. And so 10 minutes before I went on stage, I was literally writing code. The leaderboard was like broken. And so I was like trembling as I went up there because I was like, well, I hope my code's working.
Well, it worked.
Yeah, Greg was in the background and I was telling Greg, like, this thing is not working. Like, I need help. Like, mayday, mayday, mayday. I'm going on stage in 5 minutes.
Literally 5 minutes before he was supposed to get on stage in front of 300 people, he's like, help, I pushed new code and it broke everything.
Oh my gosh. Wow. So here's a presentation. You're panicking 5 minutes before, but yet you touch someone who's gotten into a cybersecurity field that they never thought possible and actually given up on it, right, Jibby?
Yeah, I kept it as a hobby. Like I was still
Mhm.
playing at night, but it was purely just a hobby at that point. It was
Mhm.
just like it'd become interesting enough for me to want to do it. I mean, I wasn't obsessively doing it every night, but every now and then I'd go back and I'd play another room, that's what they call them. Yeah, and I'd gotten pretty far on that platform, but it still felt like very overwhelming. And I think it's because it moves so fast and everything feels like it's just an intro to this, an intro to that. And there's a lot to be introduced to if you approach that way. And I remember because after the CTF at Sans, Simeon did a little like 30-minute Q&A. And that he said something to me in that Q&A that really changed the way I thought. And I asked him a question about like, what are the most important tools to learn? Because if you look into like a career as a SOC analyst and you follow all these career paths, like there's like tons of tools that you're supposed to learn. And he told me the tools don't matter. He said just learn how to investigate. And it felt like really simple, but it really stuck with me.
Mhm.
And it really kind of drove the way I started learning after that. I'm like, oh yeah, I shouldn't worry about that too much. And I think the beauty of KC7 is that it does take a lot of the tooling away from it. And you just focus on like what's happening in the story, and what are the possible paths that things can take without thinking about the tools so much. You think about the bigger picture of things, and as opposed to focusing on all the technical stuff that, as somebody who's not a computer or a technical person, can sometimes be overwhelming. And it just becomes like, now I'm just thinking about like, who are the people that are involved, and what is this company, and all the fun things about it, really, like all the details that make it interesting, as opposed to like the little things that you type in, which kind of help you to uncover the details. Yeah.
So would you say the game eliminates the intimidation factor for people such as yourself, such as me, who we don't have coding experience, we don't have IT experience, but yet we can get in there and play the game and learn while we're playing, basically. So do you feel it does reduce that intimidation factor for people?
I fully believe that anybody who plays the game can become good at it if they play it enough. Like if you practice, you could become good at it. And I'll tell you, like I'm on the KC7 Cyber Discord, and I'm helping people. And some of these people have a lot of experience, and I don't have a lot of experience, and I can't really do very good KQL because I don't have to, because it's not about writing the best query. It's just about knowing where to look. And sometimes I'm going to Cyber Chef and making these long strings of things to throw back in because I don't know how to write, but it works. And you don't have to learn the language. And it's, again, it goes back to Simeon, like, don't worry about the tools. And I don't know if the job I'm going to have is going to be using KQL. And so I'm not going to invest all my energy into that, but I do like to find the answer. And so how do I find that answer without having the tools? And I think, like, even at work, that's my approach too. Like, I don't have a lot of tooling, and I don't need a lot of tooling. I try to make things happen with what I have in front of me. Sometimes a tool breaks, you still have to get something done. What do? You have to figure out the problem. And so I try not to rely on it too much. But I think that with KC7, anybody can step in there and play and know how to do it. There's something magical about the way it's set up, I guess. Like, and I don't even really know. Like, it just kind of, I just absorbed like this power, I think, from playing it. Like, from not knowing how to do anything, and after a few modules, the way the questions kind of direct you to investigate, it sticks with you. Like, oh, okay, which email? How many emails? Oh, okay, I understand now. They're trying to establish scope here, or which roles are targeted. Oh, was this a targeted attack? And then as you play the future ones, you start thinking like that. And now I've got to the point where I can't even follow the questions because my mind goes so fast. I'm like, you give me one thing and I'm like, okay, these are 10 different ways I can approach this. How do I want to do it? And then, oh no, I have to go back to the questions.
So it sounds like instead of focusing on the tools, you have learned a new way of thinking, almost.
Yes. Yeah, it teaches you how to think. I think it teaches you how to think, and it teaches you, you learn about like which different paths things can take and how to navigate those paths. Yeah.
How awesome. So Greg and Simeon, I want to ask you to jump in just for a second. So you guys have been in cybersecurity for some time. How have you seen Jibby grow over the last year? Coming from someone who has no background at all, has been working with KC7. Can you give me a little feedback on that?
I'll let Simeon take that one first since he met him first, and then I'll jump in.
Yeah, I mean, he's had like the ideal path, right? And I will say it's very similar to the path that Greg and I had, right? Like when we talk about like my path, like how did I get into cybersecurity? I played a game that was just like KC7. I got excited about it, and then I got to sit literally for 3 years inside of a SOC as an intern and just like play with data. And the number one thing that I got out of that experience, in fact, I almost used none of the tools from like my internship. I actually don't use any of those tools anymore. But what I got out of there was like a lot of time spent looking at data and like building all those paths in my head and figuring out how to think about like intrusions. And so, but then like that's not really like normally that's not really a very helpful thing to tell to someone. They're like, hey, I want to get into cybersecurity. I'm like, yeah, like you need to learn how to think critically. Like what is that gonna do to me, right? Like that's not very helpful. Um,
Exactly.
but if you can, and it's hard to get that opportunity, but if you can create that opportunity for someone, like the ideal scenario of like, here's a bunch of data, you can go and you can practice and you can get better. Like that is the ideal scenario that I think we've tried to create with KC7. And Jibby has like, I think he's really like understood it early, right? And sometimes people get distracted by the KQL, they get distracted by the tooling. And I'm like, focus, like don't get distracted by the tooling, get like focus on like the attack paths and focus on like the process. And I always whenever anyone says practice, like you the Allen Iverson meme, like practice, not a game. We're talking about practice. And like that's all it is. Like, what's the difference between a beginner analyst and a senior analyst, right? Like if you have an analyst who's way better than me, what's the difference between us two? They've probably seen a lot more things than I've seen. They probably have a lot more practice. And this kind of evens the playing field, right? If you want to get better, you just practice. And with enough practice, you can overtake anybody. And I think that's what Jibby's done like in just a year because I mean he puts in the work. That man is more curious and more persistent than anyone I've ever met. And that is the truth.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more with everything Simeon said. My first, I wasn't actually at Sans New to Cyber, but I was in contact with Simeon before, during, and after the event. And he told me, he said, yeah, we had 300-ish attendees, and there was one particular person who is actually a watch and jewelry repair person. And like he did really well and he asked some great questions. And I was like, sweet, it's cool to hear that there are people from different backgrounds using our tool. And then a few weeks later, as the scoreboard continued to grow and we added more modules, this Jibba player pops out in the top. I don't know how long it took you to get to number 1, but it wasn't very long for you to get in the top 5. And I was like, oh, who's this? Who's this Jibba person? Do they work at a cyber company? And Simeon's like, no, that's the watch and jewelry repair person I told you about. And I was like, what? And Jibby showed up to almost every event we had. He was always super engaged, and very quickly he started to emerge as sort of a mentor and a leader within our community. And I think that's one thing that really, really impressed me is like, not only is he new to this entire realm, this entire world, but like he so quickly stepped into it, gotten good at it, and then stepped into a role where he's trying to empower others. And I think that's so inspiring. It really should be, an inspiration to all of us to try to take our skills and, what we're good at and bring it to others. But he's an amazing part of our community. I think he knows more about our modules than Simeon or I do. Actually, literally right before we started recording this, Simeon was like, someone asked me a question about CJ Walker. And I was like, I don't know, ask Jibby. So he's amazing. He sort of stepped into a volunteer role recently and is helping us, shape the content and shape the future of the game. It's the whole KC7 journey. I think Simeon would echo this. It has helped us cross paths with people, and bring us to places we never thought we'd be. And I think Jibby's just another example of an amazing person that, we've sort of crossed paths with on this crazy journey. It's been great.
That's
for me
incredible.
too, like my path is like I never thought I'd be here. Like I never thought I'd be in Las Vegas at DEF CON. Like I've done so like my life, like when I say it's changed my life, I think in a million years I never would have thought that I'd be doing what I'm doing now, or the places that I went to last year and all the things I got involved in. And yeah, all from just playing a game and just answering some simple questions, and then just kind of everything just went from there. Yeah. When
Wow.
Greg talked about the answering questions on the community, like I remember in the very beginning, I was very scared. Like I would have an answer and I would erase it. And I would have an answer and I would erase it. Like, who am I to give somebody help? Like I've only been doing this for a few months. But I just kind of one day I just thought, you know what? They have a question and I have the answer. It doesn't really matter who I am because they don't know me anyways, right? Like I'm on the other side of the screen. And once people got to know me, like, wait, you don't work in IT? And like, no, not a day in my life. I don't no. So yeah, it was kind of scary in the beginning, but then it became something where I felt like every time I helped somebody, I learned something too from them. And so it was just more learning, and it just thought like, I want to learn as fast as I can. I will help as many people as I can.
And I will say from an education perspective, nothing makes you happier as an educator than for your students to take over teaching and helping their peers learn things. And basically that's what's happened here. These guys created the game, but you're obviously leading the way. And what an inspiration. What an inspiration you are, even to me, because I'm still intimidated, and I've been in the game. I've started it. And I'm like, okay, I can do this, but what's going to happen at the next level? So what would you tell me? Give me some advice. How am I going to get past thinking, okay, either I'm too old, or I don't have enough experience, or I don't want to, I don't want to make a fool of myself if I'm in here and other people are seeing, oh, you're at the bottom of the scoreboard. So what kind of advice would you give me?
I I don't think anybody is good at it in the very beginning. And I think we all kind of go into it with the expectation that you're supposed to be good at this. But there's a lot of failing and a lot of trial and error. And I think a lot of times what keeps people from succeeding is being afraid of failing. Half the times I answer questions, like the people already have the answer. They're just afraid to hit the run button. And it's like, just hit it and see what happens. Just try it and try 10 things, and maybe one will work. And I think that's what it comes from. It just comes from practice, like Simeon said, and just trying it and going in with the expectation that it's not going to be super easy in the beginning, because they're all like little building blocks, and it's okay to get the wrong answer. Like, nobody's watching you really at home, and you're just playing the game, and there's no penalty for getting it wrong. You can guess as many times as you want. So, but sometimes by getting the wrong answer multiple times, you'll learn how to get it right from that too. And I think one great thing about a platform like this is it builds like resilience, because you get used to failing. You get used to running the query wrong. You don't get the answer, and it just becomes part of the process. And like now, as somebody who's going through like the whole job application and interview process, it's like I've become so used to failing, it doesn't bother me at all. Like, yeah, I expect it actually. Like if I throw out 100 resumes, I expect that none of them are going to stick, because that's how it is when I play KC7. Like I try a bunch of things and they don't work, and I end up back where I am in the beginning, and I have to start over. And it just becomes natural and part of the process. And I think that's another kind of side effect of playing the game too that you get. It just kind of builds like this toughness, and you just keep working at things and slowly kind of chipping away at it. And so as somebody who's new and afraid of it, it's, yeah, you just try it. And some days aren't good days, come back to it tomorrow, or go and play like one of the daily sevens. For me, like in watch repair, sometimes I'll get stuck in a problem, and I start to lose my confidence. And what I learned over the years, I keep like little easy projects on the side for those days. And so sometimes you have like a little win and you build a little momentum, you can go back and get the hard problem later that day. And so I do that with stuff like this too, with KC7. Like I know like there's some easy ones. I'll keep those in my pocket, or I'll just go back and kind of do take 10s and just keep busy and keep my hands going. And then I'm like, okay, I feel good, and let me try and tackle that again. And so sometimes it's just like a little bit of a reset.
That's awesome. So I know people that are watching this are wondering this question, so I'm going to ask it. Where do you go from here? Do you see yourself getting into this field as a career, or is this going to continue to be a hobby?
Oh no, most definitely. I'm gonna find a job at some point. Some lucky company's gonna take a chance on me, and it was weird because for the longest time it was like, okay, the goal is to get a job in cybersecurity. But I think I've gone so I'm like, now it just feels like it's gonna happen at some point. And the goal is no longer just to get a job. It's now to be like the best at that job. Like I keep changing things. Like at first I wanted a job. Then I was like, well, I love this platform so much, so I need to be the one who proves that you can get a job without certifications and just KC7 Cyber on your resume. So that's what I did. I'm like, okay, I found a free way to get certifications. I just still don't want to take them, because now I'm committed to being somebody who sets an example for others. So I get the job saying I did it with just KC7 Cyber. How many people could I bring into the platform with that? But it's not enough. I have to get that job and be good at that job so that the employers see like, oh, KC7 Cyber, not only can they get the job, they're going to be really good at the job too. So that's my goal now. I just keep I reach one thing and it's not enough. I have to go further with it. And so, and like, I've joined the team, like I'm helping to build the future modules. I'm reaching out to different organizations and really kind of trying to get people like me involved, because I feel like there's a lot of people out there who are intimidated and scared, and you like there's like you have to take a boot camp and all these different kind of I don't want to call it bad advice because it's not bad for everybody. Everybody has a different path, but we don't all have to take the same path. And this is one option that people can choose. That's fun. It's so much more fun than taking a test. Like, why would somebody not want to do it?
Exactly. Well, you have certainly inspired me. I already feel like I can do things. It's within my reach. When before I was like, well, okay, I'll try it, but I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. And I'm a pretty confident person overall, but this has been, I'll admit, it's been a little intimidating. So what advice would you give to someone who, let's start with a high school student or college student who is thinking, maybe, I don't really know, it seems kind of boring, but what would you say to a high school or college student?
Yeah, well, again, if you think it's kind of boring, you should just try it, because I don't think that you think it's boring after you played it. It becomes a lot more interesting after you see it for real. Because we all talk about like hacking, phishing and all these different kind of words, but when you actually get to see it happen in front of you for real, and you see like there's a person here, they clicked a link, and then this whole chain of events happened after they clicked the link, it becomes really exciting. It's like watching, I don't watch movies, but it's like watching a really good movie, except that you get to play a part in the movie. How many people get to play a part in the movie? Like, not very many. And you could just sign up for KC7 Cyber for free and play, like, I think there's like probably 14 different movies you can play now. Like, there's so many things that are like interesting that you can do there. And like when you said that you were kind of scared to get started and you're struggling, like we have like a really supportive Discord community. Like you go there and you post a question and somebody will help you. And we're not going to give you the answer. We're going to help you like think about how to get to the answer. And it's not intimidating at all. It's not scary. Nobody's going to make you feel bad for I ask questions sometimes. I don't have all the answers. And I always get good help.
Yeah, and I'll say Jibby's like been like one of the biggest people who answer questions on our Discord, and he's really like driven the culture within our Discord. So you think about like Discord is like a big scary place where you go in there, you ask a question, and people are like, "Oh, you're so stupid! Like, why didn't you already know that? Like, this is so trivial." And he's really created a community, and we have a community, and so many other people contribute where people will come in and stick around and they just answer questions in the nicest way, and they will come in and they will be very supportive. And I think, as an industry, that's what really we want to create, right? Like an industry where it's okay to ask questions and people will help you out and people will give help in a way that is supportive and encouraging. It's very wholesome, which I'm a big fan of that, as opposed to being a scary place where it's like, hey, going there, like, am I gonna ask a question or am I gonna like? It's not like Stack Overflow where you ask a question and like 10 people just like rip into you. It's a very supportive environment. So kudos for creating that environment. I think to a thing that's very important to us.
That's awesome, because I think in a way you guys are creating an environment that it's okay to not have all the answers. And I mean, let's face it, in the workplace, if you don't know the answers, that's not always a good thing. So hats off to you guys for creating that space, because Jibby, you said something about learning from your mistakes. I don't know about you guys, but I personally learn much more from my mistakes than I do from my accomplishments. So that's another message you're sending. So honestly, Jibby should be the poster person for KC7, definitely. Someone who did not have the experience, who is excelling and who's actually going to go into this field. So I'm even more inspired to try this. So there may be people listening Jibby, what would you say if to these folks, if they want to get started, what do we need to do? Do we need to get on, start playing the game, join Discord? What's our first steps?
Well, the first step is, yeah, you just sign up to KC7 Cyber. It's a free account. You get a free Microsoft account so you can access the data, and that's all you have to do. And that's the beauty of it. And if you get stuck, yeah, go to Discord. And it's kind of a scary place in the beginning. I was intimidated by myself, but
Mhm.
once you're there, it's not. It's like you can scroll through and look at all the old messages. You'll never see one unkind message on that board. Like everybody is super nice there. And we chat about things outside of the game too, just for fun. It's like a nice place to be. And I thank you for like giving me credit for that, but really it comes from like the Saturday challenges that you hosted early on. And that kind of the way you hosted those events was always so helpful and kind that it just kind of resonated, and that just kind of set the stage for what this platform was from the very beginning. It was only a place of like people wanting to help one another, and they would have like team challenges, and there was always somebody who was more experienced, and they were always very nice to work with, like helping you. Never made me feel bad about asking a question. I'm always asking questions, and so I kind of just took that in as like that's how you're supposed to be in this field, as opposed to the world I live in where nobody helps anybody. Everything is a trade secret, and people will talk about you behind your back because we're all competitors. So it's very refreshing to be in a place where it's like everybody's nice to one another and everybody wants to genuinely help one another get better. And I think that's what it is. Like we're all getting better together. Like I have something to learn from you just as much as you have something to learn from me. Like I'm sure, Sherry, like if you came on the platform, I could learn something from you that could be useful for me, without a doubt. Because you'll bring some kind of a way that you solve the problem that would be really interesting to me. Like I hadn't thought of that. That was really cool. Because sometimes it's not about the hard way. Sometimes it's the easy way. Or some things that are obvious to you might not be obvious to me. I think
Yeah.
that's what's fun about it.
Oh, yeah. And Simeon and Greg, is that how it is in your work environment? Do you do that?
Yeah, I was actually just about to say, this really isn't unique to KC7. I want to assure people out there who are looking to get into the field. I think one of the things I love most about cyber is that it is very much a team sport. Um, it's this cool paradigm of like, there's no single winner in defending the world, right? If we can't all be successful, then none of us are successful, right? Simeon and I work at one particular company, but it's not all about us, right? We have to work with people from other companies. We have to work with our competitors, because that is ultimately how we foster a more secure world. And so I love hearing you say, Jibby, that is apparent in the KC7 community, because that collaborative nature of the actual work is very much a thing.
Yeah. And you always say like you want to push and create a world that you want to live in, right? And so, part of the effort we're doing, right? Our whole mission, we have KC7, we have a game that teaches you how to play cybersecurity, but our whole mission is a diversity mission, right? It's kind of weird, right? Our whole mission is to create opportunity for people who, wouldn't necessarily be represented in the industry. And part of that is to create a welcoming environment, create an environment where people can show up and feel seen and heard and feel like, hey, I belong and this is a place that I actually want to stick around in. And so, part of the mission is also like, how can we create a positive environment that permeates through the rest of the industry that will say, hey, like we should do more stuff like this because this works. So, we appreciate you. We appreciate everyone who's been part of our community, who's been contributing to that. Because like Greg said, we've met so many people along their journey that have said like, hey, I'm willing to, like, I see the vision, I'm willing to contribute to that, and have really put everything behind us to get us forward one more step. So it's been a wild ride.
And it continues,
It
which is the
continues.
exciting part. Yeah. Well, this has been so inspiring. It's wonderful to get to know you, Jibby. I'm looking forward to seeing where you go. So we're going to have to touch base with Jibby occasionally just to find out exactly where his journey is taking him. I think there's great things ahead for him for sure. And I'm going to get on this game this week and try to find my comfort level. So does this just click? Is this one of those things, Jibby, that it just clicked? You said it started kind of intimidating and a little difficult, but did you find a place that it just clicked and it made sense to you? I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, after many months of doing it.
Okay.
After many months. I think, yeah, I found it in March, and it took me until about June before it really kind of hit my stride.
Okay.
But I was obsessive. Like I was getting no sleep at that time. I'd be up till like 3 a.m. doing the same thing every night, like going through it. I don't know why. It was just so exciting for me. Yeah.
It sounds like you're a natural at it too, as fast as you picked it up, for sure.
As we wrap up here, I just want to jump in on that. That is also very much a part of work in the cybersecurity field. I get paid to do this. I do this for a living, and it's hard, right? Like there are days where I struggle and I get frustrated and I'm like, what am I doing here? I'm learning something new every single day from the people I work with. I learned from Simeon. I learned from lots of other amazing people on our team. So if you're coming into this, if you're brand new to KC7, it's okay to struggle. That's part of the experience. Get comfortable with the idea that you're not going to know all the answers on day one. And you may not know all the answers on day 365, right? It's a continual learning journey. Enjoy it, have fun. And yeah, just take it all in.
Awesome. Any other final words from Simeon, Jibby, or Greg? Okay. Jibby, thank you so much for spending your day with us. We greatly appreciate it. And we will definitely have you back because I have a feeling, like I said, we're going to hear more about your journey and we're happy to share it. And we will see you guys in a week or so. Be sure to go into KC7 and find out what this game's all about. And it's been great with you guys tonight, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.